Death in the comic book world is not just assured, it's expected. Even the top guns from Marvel and DC Comics die and eventually come back. But between the various stories in the main canon, what if and Elseworld stories, and of course, the multiverse at large, they can get creative in how to kill them all. And sometimes they get rather disgusting in terms of how they do it. And we don't mean in the ironic way, we mean the brutal, violent, and disturbing way. Allow us to show you the 10 most disgusting comic book deaths. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Number 10. Billy Butcher kills Jack from Jupiter. The Boys has never been more popular thanks to its mega hit adaptation on Amazon Prime, and that show is full of gruesome deaths that we could have listed. But we'll focus specifically on the comic itself and talk about something that happened that was rather barbaric. In The Boys number 59, Billy Butcher discovers that his dog has been killed, provoking him to, quite frankly, go on an all-out rampage to find the man he thinks did it, none other than the sketchy superhero Jack from Jupiter, who was able to make himself invulnerable after speaking a special word. Upon finding his new metahuman friend, Billy exploits the obvious weakness this power gives Jack, choking him so he's unable to turn invincible, and then stabbing him repeatedly, all the while asking, "Why'd you kill me dog, Jack?" over and over again. Now, a stabbing death doesn't sound disgusting given what we've seen in superhero comics, but here, it just didn't stop. It was repeated, never ending, and the pages just kept going on with the stabbing. Plus, Jack from Jupiter is being strangled so he can't answer Billy's question, making it more painful to see unfold. Number 9. Midnighter's Revenge. DC Comics has a lot of interesting characters who can easily be defined as anti-heroes, and one of the ones that many likes is Midnighter. He's part of The Authority, a group that has its ups and downs in publications over the years. Anyway, Midnighter is never afraid to get brutal, especially when you go and hurt someone he loves. Like, oh, we don't know, his husband Apollo? You see, a villain made the very stupid move of assaulting, in a very traumatic way, Apollo. This left him very broken mentally, and when Midnighter found out this guy, he pulled out a jackhammer, and you can guess what happened next. Now, we technically don't see the deed, but if you read anything with Midnighter, you'll know that he doesn't hold back when he's angry. He's what Batman would be like if he had no restrictions. So yeah, he messed up that villain with the jackhammer. Number 8. Rorschach and the Saw. Watchmen will forever be one of the most important comics ever made, and there are certain deaths that could easily make the list, including the death of fan-favorite character Rorschach. However, Alan Moore knew how to make people cringe in regards to showing the brutality of characters, especially Rorschach. You see, the masked hero found out that a man had kidnapped a girl, abused her, and then finished her off by feeding her to the dogs he had. Rorschach was not amused, so he decided to get even. Under the cover of night, Rorschach kills the man's dogs, knocks him out with one of these dead dogs, and then handcuffs him to his furnace in the basement before handing him a hacksaw. When the man questions what for, Rorschach sets the basement on fire and provides him a choice: either burn to death in the fire or saw his handcuffed arm off with the saw. The vigilante then stands and waits outside until the entire house burns down. More than likely, the man did indeed try and saw his arm off, but failed, and justice was served. In Rorschach's mind, at least. Number 7. The Strange Ultimatum. There are often comic arcs that aim to try and shock viewers with what happens, and in the Marvel Ultimate Universe, that story arc was the Ultimatum plot, which to this day is one of the most infamous and terrible storylines ever written, not the least of which was that it featured the deaths of many heroes and villains, often in brutal fashion. We'll be talking about 2 of them in this list, the first of which is the death of Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme. The ironic thing is that the setup for the death was fine on its own. Strange's longtime rival in Dormammu had finally gotten the upper hand on this foe and was ready to kill him. But he decided to do that by using Strange's cloak of levitation to strangle him and literally make his head burst. It was bloody, gruesome, and was only one death that rocked the Ultimate Universe. Number 6. Superman kills Joker. The idea of Superman killing someone is a heavily debated issue in the comic community because it does happen, but only rarely. However, in the Injustice universe, Superman kills rather regularly. In fact, it was a killing that set the entire universe in motion. You see, Joker got bored one day of scrapping with Batman and wanted an easier target. So he used some of his Joker toxin to make Superman think that Lois Lane was actually Doomsday. By the time he realized the truth, he had accidentally killed them by taking them into space, as Doomsday would be too hard to put down in a crowded world full of bystanders. Superman confronted Joker and did his best to keep his cool, but when Joker kept egging him on, he broke. He literally plunged his fist through Joker's chest, which was horrifyingly shown in the Injustice comic, and set the world on a path that would be hard to correct. Number 5. Kevin Smiling in Sin City. Frank Miller knew how to write stories that would subvert expectations and yet not hide the gruesomeness of everything he was trying to show, and Sin City might just be his magnum opus in that regard. A key storyline is that of Marv trying to find out who killed his love, and he figures out that it was a man named Kevin Smiling, who kidnapped, tortured, mutilated, and then fed the women to his pet wolf, aside from their heads, which he mounted on a wall. After Marv finds out about this, he decides to get even on his own, equally elaborate way. Marv leads Kevin out into the land where he keeps his pet before beating him to a pulp. Marv then hacksaws off Kevin's arms and legs, applying tourniquets to prevent this from killing him, but leaves just enough blood for the wolf to realize there's a new meal. He gets his dinner, and Marv gets Kevin's head, a head that was still smiling for the record. Number 4. Old Man Logan vs. Hulk. Wolverine has killed a lot of people in his time in comics, and we do mean that in the best and worst ways possible. But in the Old Man Logan storyline that fans really loved, he had to go up against the Hulk, who at this point in time was truly a monster. The two battled it out, but then Hulk literally ate Logan, a tease for our number 1 entry, and then felt he won. He didn't. Instead, Logan regenerated inside Hulk and clawed his way out in brutal fashion, killing the Hulk in the process and proving that Wolverine, at any age, is the best there is at what I do. Number 3. Punisher. The Punisher is another character who is honestly known for his brutal kills. He has done a lot of them, and even had a gory death himself that turned him into Frankenstein. No joke. But let's focus on one of his hunts, shall we? The prize in this hunt was Christu Bulat, a human trafficker who Frank really wanted to kill. Castle drugs Bulat, and then takes him out to the middle of a forest far enough from civilization that nobody could find the pair. Then he opens Bulat's torso up, takes out his large intestine, and wraps it around a tree before tying his arms and legs together. Naturally, Bulat wakes up and is horrified by what he sees, as is the reader. Not surprisingly, he dies from his injuries, and Frank didn't really care. Number 2. Marvel Zombies Return. Here's another classic storyline that led to a very disturbing death. In the Marvel Zombies Return, Spider-Man is attacked by villain Sandman, who thinks Spider-Man is a zombie. Long story. He knows the best way to kill Spider-Man is from the inside, literally. So he goes into his sand form and literally fills Peter Parker with sand until his body pops from the strain. The visual is still one of the most haunting deaths in comic history because of how it's framed. Number 1. Wasp and Blob. Told you Ultimatum would be back. Arguably, one of the most infamous of deaths came from the Wasp, Janet Van Dyne, and the Blob. During a key moment, Blob decides that the best way to get rid of Wasp is to eat her. For real. So he does that. For real. It was ugly and vile. But we're not done, because when Hank Pym, Janet's husband, finds out what Blob did, he decides to go Giant Man on him and bite his head off. For real. Can you see now why people really don't like this storyline? So what do you think? What do you think of this look at the deaths in various comic books which were ultra-violent, ultra-gross, and super disgusting? Which one puts you off just hearing about it? Which one do you feel was just a step too far in trying to make a point about killing someone? Do you know another comic book death that would fit perfectly in this list? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.